Welcome inside the League Unlock Friendos. Eric and Mark here, and it's time to preview the knockout rounds of the play-in stages. This is when it gets really juicy. We got best of series, no more one-off, best of ones where some cheese strategy can win you a game. This is the best team will be going forward to the main stage.
Oh yeah, this is what you want to be watching when you get to Worlds. Best of fives here we're getting into. And oh boy, we have some juicy matchups, and I think that we're going to see some really cool strategy come out of these ones.
And there might be some potential for some upsets, but we're going to go through all four matchups, starting off with the first one that gets going on Saturday. C9 versus Gambit, aka NA versus EU. The rivalry is renewed.
Yeah, see, the one thing that I'm really scared about with this matchup is anytime you're a North America fan and you're thinking, give us this team. Just let us have this team. It's going to be easy. Oh boy, usually when you think it's the easy one, it's not. And that's got to be the concern here, that Gambit can come up with something interesting and catch you off guard. But I do have to say, if you're Cloud9, you should be feeling confident into this matchup. I think when you look at all the individual matches that you're going to be having to go up against here, I think that you come out ahead certainly by at least a good margin in each of those matchups.
Yeah, now obviously Cloud9 looked a whole lot better than Gambit in that group stage. They went 4-0. There was this questionable game against DFM where they should have lost, especially because they saw Licorice coming. But yeah, pretty much across the board, I think you have a favorable matchup in terms of Cloud9. The Jensen Kira is a huge mismatch. Top lane, I think Licorice, PvP Stayhouse, not nearly as adept at playing carries as Licorice is, and really Logic is the best player on Gambit, but I think the bot lane of Cloud9 pretty much neutralizes him.
Yeah, that's the really important question, I think, for me here is how much can Gambit get out of Logic in the bottom lane, because I think that that's where you're going to have to find the damage and the strength coming from for your team. But hey, the big problem here is that you're going up against Sneaky in lane. And yeah, I say Sneaky in lane because when you talk about Sneaky in lane, to say it one more time, in North America, that's a different story. He's usually losing into these matchups and has you concerned. But for the last, year, 2 years here at Worlds, when you look at how Sneaky has performed, he's been fine in lane. That's never been an issue. He's been able to handle himself, get out of there in a good enough state to deal damage out in these team fights, and I think that's what's going to be happening again against Gambit. You're not going to find that advantage there if you're Gambit, and that's pretty much the only place that I think that you could have found one before into this matchup.
Yeah, so, and if you're looking at Gambit, they had two okay games in the play-in stage, but KLG definitely looked like a pretty weak team, and two very bad games where they got completely destroyed by G-Rex. So you don't have tons of faith going in to this one, and you saw at MSI just how different they could look game to game. Sometimes you're like, oh my, this is old Gambit.
This
almost.
is what I
They're
remember.
looking fantastic. And then the next game, they're down almost 20, 30 CS in every single lane, and the game's over by 15 minutes.
Yeah, I think, and the thing that here, if you're thinking about what you've seen from Gambit in this play-in stage, then what might concern you going into this matchup of Cloud9, you have to think, well, how are they really absolutely routed by the likes of a G-Rex? And it mainly came from the strength in the jungler position and as well as the strength from the mid lane. And when you look at Cloud9 and what they're going to be bringing to the table, yeah, Jensen and Blabber certainly scare me just as much as Empty and Candy would have on G-Rex there. So I think that when you're looking at this matchup, it again spells doom for Gambit.
Two questions. Does Gambit win a game, and will we see Swole scare and hit the Rift?
Ooh, I'm going to say no, 0 wins for Gambit in that matchup, but I will say that there's a pretty good chance that we might see Swole scaring in either at the beginning or he might come in later to show a little bit of a wrinkle there because, again, haven't seen him yet at Worlds, and we know that he has been preparing and practicing quite hard and brings a different style than Blabber, so could be a good switch up into that matchup.
Yeah, I think Cloud9 gets the clean sweep and keeps their perfect play-ins record alive. I don't think they even put Sven Skarin in. They're saving him for the group stage. I'll definitely think we'll see him, assuming that they do make it to the main stage. The second knockout round match that also gets going on Saturday is China versus Japan. It's EDG versus Detonation FocusMe. And DFM were one of the teams that we were the highest on out of the minor regions in the group stage, but they got a little bit unlucky. They drew EDG, who looked like the best team in the play-in stage.
Yeah, this is if you haven't yet, go look up the clip of the Japanese casters' reaction to finding out that Detonation FocusMe is going to be advancing from the play-in stage into this knockout part here. And it's so important and heartwarming to see that reaction of excitement and how they feel about it. But there were some tears of joy at that time. There might be some tears of sadness.
Let's see the reaction to drawing EDG.
Seeing that you get EDG, because as we've seen, yes, Infinity Esports pulled off an incredible comeback victory against them. But you have to be thinking EDG has, out of all the major region teams so far, other than that one slip up against Infinity Esports, EDG has certainly shown themselves to be that top-ranked team here. And I think that heading into this, it could be just too much for Detonation FocusMe to pull off the upset.
They do have some question mark moments, though, especially when they start Haro in the jungle. Yeah, a lot of the time, they just snowball a game completely out of control because he's so insanely aggressive in that early game. But there are some macro decisions and really just what fights they're taking later on. They get a little too confident, a little too over-aggressive, and you know, it gives chances like this for Infinity to get back into these games. So maybe there's a bit of a chance there for DFM. I actually think they're going to take a game.
I think they absolutely can look to take a game here, but I think that overall, I think the strengths of EDG will shine through. I think Ray will have a good time in the top lane, and I feel like that even though you're looking at this Detonation FocusMe and feeling like you've got a good, strong bot lane and feeling like you can get something from Utapon, I think right now, when you do look at this matchup, I think iBoy is licking his chops saying that I'm going to be picking up and getting some good damage numbers out in this matchup.
Yeah, and for DFM, even a guy like Saros was a guy who looked pretty solid in that group stage, but obviously now the competition just goes to a whole new level. You're going against Scout. Obviously, that's heavily in the favor of EDG. Ray was actually looking pretty good I mean, he's shown that he can play tanks and carries. It used to be he just comes in to play the carries, but now he can play tanks as well. So I think maybe DFM, if they play like they did in the group stage, which was leaps and bounds above what people were expecting, and I think if you're a fan of Japanese League of Legends, you're already proud what this team has done, but I think they get one win against EDG. I don't think they can pull off the upset, but I think they can get one W.
I would love to see the upset, and I think it's going to be one way that they could get this upset is, again, one other player to mention will be Saros in that mid lane to see if he can pop off again, find that way to help facilitate his team would be the way that they would pick up these wins. But I think right now that that's such a hard ask for him because you're going to be going up against Scout here, which is such a step up amongst the mid laners that you would be facing in your own region and things like that. And then as well, Scout is not only that better mid laner right now, he's performing up to level, and I think that's an important indicator given how strong EDG will be in this matchup.
Yeah, and leading up to the draw, iBoy said, doesn't really matter who we pick. We feel like we're the best team in the tournament. And yeah, you probably are, even though G-Rex maybe looked more dominant. I think their group was a whole lot easier. So don't think DFM gets it done against EDG. But man, what a run for the squad from the LJL. And that region as a whole is looking a whole lot better lately. Coming up after the break, we'll take a look at the other knockout rounds. Turkey has a chance to prove that they're getting so much closer to being on the same level as those major regions. This is League on Lock. That's Mark, and I'm Eric, believe it or not, and we are looking at the knockout rounds for play-ins 2018 at Worlds. Moving on to the games that are getting going on Sunday. You got G2, who, by the skin of their teeth, locked up that first seed, which means they're rewarded with Infinity Esports in their matchup, who really turned it around, had a 2-0 week, including an upset against EDG to close out their run. Despite all of that, obviously G2 are still massive favorites.
Still have to favor G2 in this one. I think that, yes, you got to give some credit to Infinity Esports for what they did here in their second day of action, but I think when you're looking at this matchup, you got to be favoring G2. They have to be the ones to take advantage in this matchup, and when you're looking across the board here, where they're going to be finding these advantages, I think the really big one here that I want to clue in on is going to be that jungle matchup, because I think right now, I think Jankos is playing fantastic for G2. I think that he is finding that right balance there of playing these aggressive early champions that he's known for and he knows how to play well, but not using those advantages to make himself the super strong focal point, but finding ways to help facilitate the likes of Wonder or Perks, find those advantages for his teammates, and I think that that's going to be the difference maker here for G2.
Yeah, throughout the group stage, I think no question that Jankos was the MVP for them. Even in the game they lost, he was performing fine, and the entire time we've seen this G2 roster, they play around their solo laners. It worked to perfection against the likes of Supermassive in that tiebreaker where they just completely dusted the likes of Fabulous and GBM. So you got to think that there's going to be a whole lot more of that. Solid Snake did look fantastic for Infinity in the games that they were winning. They destroyed the 2v2 matchup against Dire Wolves, but obviously the advantage is still going to Jankos. And let's kill the memes about him choking internationally.
Yeah, those memes look to be choked out right now because there's no oxygen for them to go on. Jankos doing well here at Worlds on the international stage. I think one of the important points here to look at for G2 is you can actually look for some improvement from the likes of a Wadid here. I think Wadid does need to step up his performances, has been a little bit shaky on the likes of the Alistar, some questionable engages or trying to minimize some losses that have turned out to not be needed or things like that. I think Wadid's performance could certainly be stepped up, but his other half of the bot lane, Yarnan, has certainly stepped up his performance from what people had expected out of him, and I think that his damage numbers could be good heading into this matchup.
If I'm Infinity, I might throw 4 bans at Yarnan. Take out his Heimer, take out Varus, take out Jhin, and pick Kaisa or something like that. And just see, I don't think he has a very deep champion pool. I think those 3 marksmen are the main ones that he can play, and I mean, everyone's banning Heimer against him, which is hilarious, by the way, that's drawing a ban every time. But I'm just not so sure how deep his champion pool is, and maybe Renu can pop off.
Yeah, I think it's certainly he could pop off, has shown us that capability here. And I think that if you're Infinity Esports, one of the important things I think right now is getting that mid-jungle synergy going. And I think in that aggressive style that you had shown was where you came back against EDG. And I think if you can bring that type of synergy into your matchup against G2, could cause some good confusion and lead to you picking up some advantages in this series. But I still think it's a monumental task for these guys to put it together enough times to win the best of 5.
Yeah, I mean, I'm hesitant to say that they'll win a game against G2, but G2 sometimes throws up some questionable performances. So I'm going to give them a game. I still think, obviously, G2 is going to take this one 3-1. Kaisa is going to be a heavily contested pick, as she is in every single series of all time in Season 8. But I think G2, they got the nerves shaken out when they lost to Supermassive earlier, and they've looked a whole lot better since.
I still think there's going to be some mistakes made by the G2 side, and I think that if you're looking for a way that Infinity Esports can find a way to win this series, it is certainly going to all depend on how many times they can capitalize on those mistakes from G2 and how heavily they can punish them for these mistakes, because it's going to happen. These mistakes will happen from G2. They haven't shown us a clean, perfect performance yet, so you know it's going to be there. But I think that this is really the difference maker between some of these lesser regions and the major regions, is proving that you can really punish your opponent for their mistakes. And I think that's going to be where Infinity Esports comes up just short.
Just short. G2 advances, we believe, to the main stage. I expect to see them there. The juiciest matchup of the quarterfinals, and probably the highest potential for upset, comes in the last matchup of the weekend. Supermassive taking on G-Rex. Supermassive, the most hyped minor region team, and G-Rex probably the most dominant team in the group stage, but a lot of that I'm attributing to the easiest group. By far the easiest group.
Oh, it certainly was the easiest group. And hey, you do got to give some credit here to G-Rex for making it look like the easiest group that they've had here at Worlds, but definitely showing that the 3rd seed from the LMS is a power to be reckoned with here in these play-ins. They have proven themselves, especially I want to talk about the likes of Empty and as the jungler, and Candy in the mid lane have been some stellar performances from them. They've really carried their team through their play. And I think that right now, heading into this matchup against Supermassive, have to be the favorites, but you do think that this is finally going to be the time that G-Rex really gets tested, because the likes of Gambit, Chaos Latin Gamers were not providing that stiff test. And I think right now you're going to get that challenge that you've been wanting to have to prove yourself on the world stage.
Yeah, throughout the entire group stage, it was a walk in the park for G-Rex. They were really never even close to tested. And if you remember last year, the 3rd seed Hong Kong attitude, people were like, why does the LMS even have a 3rd seed? They're so bad. But G-Rex has looked pretty darn good. And even go back to spring, yeah, they got 3-0'd by Flash Wolves in the finals, but throughout the entire regular season, they were stomping everyone except for Flash Wolves, because we know they dominate that region. G-Rex could maybe even be better than Mad Team in the role that they're going on right now. So I still think this is the most possible for an upset, but I think G-Rex will get it done. I can easily see this going to Game 5, and then you have G-Rex completely stomp, much like you saw Supermassive get stomped against G2.
I certainly see that happening, and I think that when you're from Supermassive side and you're looking for where are we going to find some advantages and try to put some pressure on the map, I don't know if you're actually really going to get any, even with the type of players that you have. I don't think that GBM is going to find himself the matchup that he wants in the mid lane. And I think when you're talking about even in the bot lane with Zeitnot and Snowflower there, I think you're really going to be minimized as far as the type of success that you're going to have against the likes of someone like Stitch in the bot lane. Has proven himself to be who can handle himself down there, not give up too many advantages, and still have a way into those team fights. And then again, the big issue for me with Supermassive has to be Fabulous in the top lane. His performance has certainly been so far from what you would expect of anybody on a team of this level. And the real problem for me, though, is that this isn't new. We've seen Fabulous struggle at international performances before.
It's the same thing at MSI.
Even this year, we've seen him struggle at it. And even into some of these matchups that you should not be struggling in as a top laner, he certainly has been. And I think that that's going to be a real big issue heading into G-Rex, because what have we seen from G-Rex but PK absolutely be a monster in the top lane. If you let him get that Urgot, you're as good as ground meat there, buddy. You're gone.
Yeah, I think that's, as a theme, seems to be the biggest mismatch of this this matchup, because I mean, PK won MVP in the spring split against LMS, and he's going against a guy who everyone is just exploiting and saying this is the huge weakness on Supermassive. I think Stomaged has kind of been outclassed in a lot of these matchups as well, and that's two parts of G-Rex that really thrive. So I think coming into that 5th game, they'll have kind of figured out, gotten a feel for this series, and realize what weakness they have to go at and just destroy them in that 5th game.
Hey, that's going to be a pretty darn big mismatch right there. You got the MVP PK right there going up against, hey, who turns out to be G2's MVP in Fabulous. So, oh boy, I'm not looking forward to that one from Supermassive side. I think G-Rex is going to take this one pretty handily.
If GBM avoids building Spirit Visage and plays maybe Galio 5 games in a row, though, there might be a chance for Supermassive. This is the only one I could possibly see going to 5 games, though.
Yeah, you know what? I can't even will myself to pick Supermassive. You remind me of Spirit Visage Cassiopeia. You pull that stuff off, get out of my world.
That's immediately, Mark gives them no chance when you're building stuff like that.